Now welcome today's host, Mark Taylor.
Well, welcome back to the Seeking the City podcast. We've got a special guest today. Some of you may know Jordan. I've gotten to know Jordan through my church at Highview Church. I'm in West Georgia here with the Seeking the City organization, and we do city outreach and community transformation and church multiplication efforts and initiatives. And we take Jesus where Jesus is not known in our community. So we identify people and places where Jesus and where the church is needed most. And so Jordan is actually on mission with his life, just graduated from the University of West Georgia back in December of last year with a mathematics degree, and now pursuing being on mission in another country, actually. And so while he's been here, he's been very active in discipleship and leadership, and being able to bring Jesus good news of the gospel and that salvation that comes through Christ, but then also being able to disciple those once they come to faith in Christ and helping them get to know Jesus. And so welcome, Jordan Thomas, to the Seeking the City podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is, we've been trying to schedule this for a little while, so I appreciate your being able to come on and share what it is that God's calling you to. And maybe this will be something that'll inspire and mobilize others as well to be on mission. And they could be doing that right here, right? And you've shown how that's possible, even as a busy college student. So we're going to kind of get into your story and some of your experience. But you're only 23 years old. You're from right here in Douglasville, Georgia, right down the road from Carrollton, about halfway in between Atlanta and Carrollton, right? And we're on the west side of Atlanta, for those that don't know where West Georgia is, almost to the Alabama line. But you also were able to, with campus outreach and through our church at Highview, you were able to help lead some small groups and give some leadership to discipleship efforts on the University of West Georgia campus. Tell us about when you were with campus outreach as a student. What are some ministry opportunities that you had?
The campus outreach has got to be like one of the best opportunities, or like one of the best catalysts for like a young believer, especially for myself. Ranging from a ton of events throughout the year, whether it's like a weekend where we went to PCB to enjoy the beach, but also enjoy God and meet him and learn more about him, or like over winter break, we had New Year's conference. There you go, NYC,
Right.
where you spend that summer, that winter break, just with a bunch of different other schools, over 1,000 students there. You can hear from God and meet other students and see how big God is pursuing college students. And then even over the summer, where you can dedicate 6 weeks to either going to Beach Project or CCP, which is pretty much you allocating your summer to growing closer with God, life on life discipleship, whether internationally or stateside. And so that's even on the bigger scale, but on the smaller scale, like throughout the school year, between like our weekly weeks, or at least we call that West Georgia the Gathering, where we would show up together, have a mini Bible study and a little bit of discussion, or even your even smaller group of like students having a discipleship group that would meet once a week, or a Bible study, just to learn more about Christ, learn how to read your Bible, how to grow in discernment to find a healthy local church, things that you'll need for your whole longevity of being a believer, was very beneficial. And that mostly came from campus outreach, from my experience on the college campus.
That's awesome. And so the next level or next thing that God has been leading you to is to commit for at least the next 2 years to be a part of UFMG campus staff in Brazil. And that's part of being with campus outreach as well. So we're going to get into that and the specifics of what that's going to look like and how people can support you and be praying for you as well. But tell us about coming to faith in Christ. How did all this begin? I know you were a student and very active in discipleship, but it began somewhere, right? Coming to have a relationship with God through Christ. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've been blessed to be raised in a family who believed in Christ, even while I was being raised. I don't think there was a time in my life I don't think I knew the name Jesus. Part of that may be living in the Bible Belt. Most of that is just the family that I was in. And so growing up, I went to all of the things like Vacation Bible School or Christian camps like Windshape and things like that, where you just learn a lot about Jesus and his character. I think for me, though, the difference was that my heart just wasn't there. I think I had a true and genuine encounter with Christ when I was fairly young, maybe like 5 or 8 years old. But I didn't know how to like have a relationship with him. It was just like, oh, this guy is real. And since I believe he's real, I'm good. But then sooner down a little bit longer down the line, my dad became a pastor. And so
Oh,
I knew I wanted to honor him in a way. And so I like started to read the Bible and I tried to like put on a good face forward of like how I should act to honor my father in ways like that. And I think somewhere down the line, like it kind of made me a little bit legalistic, whereas like I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. So God should be okay with me. Which can be a really lonely place because sometimes you'll look at the people of the world and you'll be like, I'm better than them. But then you look at the Christians who seem like they really get it and you're like, they're better than me. And so you're kind of like
hmm.
in that middle ground of like, I really don't belong to either of these groups. And so I kind of sat in that balance for a little while.
Well,
I think COVID came and it like messed up everything. Like I had so many cruises lined up, but that has nothing to do with the testimony. But like I was
but it's
really
part of your journey,
separated.
though, right, Jordan?
Yeah, it is part of the journey. And during COVID, I was really separated from everybody I knew. And so I was kind of forced to kind of sit in those thoughts that I kind of may have been able to avoid with other people or distractions in that way. And then, like, with my mind fresh off of COVID, like having a true encounter with God, my father sitting with me and like praying with me through some really difficult things. I go to a college campus. Like I said, we're fresh out of COVID. And so I just see a bunch of people sitting on an amphitheater. And since we're fresh out of COVID, I really just want any human interaction I can get. So I just walk up to them. I'm like, hey, what y'all talking about? And it happened to be campus outreach. And so they were having their first gathering post
Oh,
COVID.
wow.
And so I was like, wow, this is
Now,
really cool.
was
And
was it Antonio and Hannah and them, or who? Was it
Antonio
people
and
you even knew?
Hannah, they were there. I didn't know them at that point.
Right.
Hannah was even still a student. So
Okay.
that was a while back. And so I walked on the campus and I showed up late and I just went to the discussion part and it was really cool. And so I would frequently come really late because I always valued the discussion typically more than the lecture. Um, and so one day a guy called me out on it because I showed up late. This really awesome guy named T. Clark. But he called me out on it. He was like, hey, maybe you'd understand what we were talking about if you show up on time. And so I was like, that's a good point. And so I show up on time for the first one, and they actually talk about the prodigal son. And
Hmm.
prodigal son is pretty much the son who had a really wealthy father. He was one of two sons, and he said, I want all of my inheritance now. And he took it and ran away and did debaucherous things with it. Got really poor, started working for pigs or working for a man who had him working with pigs, realized he had a better life at home with his father, and so he returned home. And the man, Tyler Clark, by this point, he knew me pretty well. And he was like, Jordan, just as much as the son who did all of those things left and came back, realized he needed a relationship with the father. He's like, so did the son who stayed at home, who thought he could like earn his father's love. Like he also needed a unique relationship with the father because he can't do it on his own. And he was like, Jordan, I really think that you are the son who stayed at home. And I was like, oh. And so like after he really explained it, I was like, yeah, you're so right. And so after that,
And
I
this is
got
just like your
into,
first meeting.
I'm talking about maybe my third meeting
Okay.
there.
Yeah, it's a little heavy
And
on
I'm
the first
like,
meeting. It's like, yeah,
hey,
at least
but he was on it. The spirit led him through beautiful discernment, and he clocked, as they say, he clocked my tea. He caught me full on it, and so I was like, I agree. And so after that, he kind of led me to an amazing guy who was leading a Bible study at the time, and our whole job was to go through the Gospels. And so, in that next following semester, we went through the whole Gospels, all four of them. And after that, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. And so I think what was really special about CO, at least in my testimony on my personal life, is that I always believed in God. I believed he was real. I think I had a religion, but campus outreach kind of opened my eyes to the relationship.
Mm.
And it's not one or the other. They're kind of interdependent. Like since you have a relationship with Christ, you want to be obedient to the law and things of that
So
nature.
you're
And
going
so,
through the Gospels for those that are listening in that may
yeah,
not be too familiar. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the first four
yes,
books of the
sir.
New Testament. So that testify in different ways or different accounts of who the person of Jesus is. Okay.
Yep,
So
yep.
that
And
impacted
so,
you. You're like, hey, I don't know this relationship. Yeah, with this
yeah,
person.
because I think once Tyler told me like that thing, he was like, "You're the son who stayed at home. It's like all works, but your heart's not there." I think that's really when it really clicked. And then kind of all the wisdom that my family, who was so intentionally discipling me all my life, kind of up to this moment, all that like knowledge changed from knowledge to like wisdom. Like
Mm.
before I read the Bible and I was like, that makes sense. But then like now I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, I'm impacted. There's a conviction. Like I feel guilt for this sin. Instead of just like, ooh, that's bad. I shouldn't get caught doing it. It was like, I don't want to do it at all. And so I think that's when I really knew that my life was changed when the things I was once doing now convicted me so deeply. And I desired to do better. And I think that
Is
was
it
really
fair to
just,
say then, Jordan, that you were identifying with the older brother that stayed at home and he did all the right things and
yeah,
believed all the right things and all that, but that you were doing them for the wrong reasons, that you were doing them for God's grace, to earn his grace, instead of doing it from a place from grace where you received his saving grace. And you're just so grateful that you want to give your life to that God, to live his commands, his
yeah.
teachings, his way of life that he desires for us. Yeah.
No, I think that's completely fair. I think especially for me, I am very like a goal oriented individual. And realizing, or especially like up to this point, I was living a religion to where I felt like, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, then God will be happy. Almost like
Mm-hmm.
I was pursuing the fruits of the spirit to gain the spirit instead of pursuing the spirits to pursuing the spirit. And then in addition, I gained the fruit. It's like I was going backwards. And so I think once I realized that it was nothing that I could do, I think that was probably the biggest eye opener. One of my favorite aspects about God is just the way his love is unconditional. Because everything I've experienced up to this point was based off how well I could perform, how well I treated someone, how intelligent I was, how respectful I am to people of authority. So it was like things I could earn. But this is something I physically could not earn, and yet I got it for free. And it's like the best thing ever. And so
That's interesting
I
because
think,
I never thought
yeah,
about that. Well, I guess the way you said it, you were striving to produce the fruit of the
hmm,
Spirit in order to gain the Spirit or the relationship with God and all that God has to offer us in his relationship, the
yeah,
fullness of God. However, instead of that, you were being filled and led by his Spirit, and it just naturally produced the fruit of the Spirit that he desires,
yeah,
as we're talking about from Galatians 5. Yeah, I had
hmm,
a pastor share with me that I was doing that. I was performing and, I was no one more committed to the church. I was on staff at churches. I served in every role, but senior pastor and church planning being my favorite. But, I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, though. I call them the R's. I was doing it for all the right roles. I needed the roles, the respect from certain men that were in ministry. I needed,
hmm,
the rhetoric, the right things that I would to say that maybe seemed like I was at peace with God or right with God. And the rituals of the church and the
yeah,
religion of the church. Like I was good with all that, right? And so, but it was different. A pastor said, "But you're so striving to try to earn His grace when you already have His grace. Just enjoy it, live in it, and be compliant, be responsive to what He's trying to do and wants to do and desires
yeah,
of you. Be obedient to that, and I'm telling you, you will see the fruit of the Spirit that we talk about from Galatians 5. Instead of trying to strive, so instead of trying to strive for peace, joy,
hmm,
love, joy, peace, patience, kinds of. that let Jesus be your peace. He is the Prince of Peace. Let him be your
Yeah.
joy. Let
Yeah.
him
That's the
be,
point.
your love. Yeah. And so that's kind of was a different perspective. But going back to the prodigal, that's an interesting account that Jesus was telling about the two types of brothers. One that squandered and took his father's inheritance early before his dad passed, as
Hmm.
tradition, and went off into it says far off country. Now that could represent far off from God or just far off literally geographically
In
or both.
distance.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he squanders that opportunity with wild living, but then all the ways that the father probably trained him to, but um, found out by wisdom what came to his senses, and I believe that was God drawing him back to himself. But in that story, but I think what was interesting is I was that opposite. I wasn't the brother who stayed at home. That was my older brother in
Okay.
our family. For me, it was I wanted all the benefits of the father's house without his authority. So
Yeah.
I was the little brother that went off for a little while,
Gotcha.
and when I was younger. And so, but when God called me to ministry and all that, of course, life changed, and thank God for His mercy and His grace. So Jordan, did you grow up in a church in Douglasville or Douglas County area? Was that pretty common for you before you
Yeah, I
became a
did grow
pastor?
up in a church.
Okay.
I grew up um in
Was he a
one
pastor like
called
all your childhood life?
no, he started
Okay.
maybe uh let's say I remember it when he was like when I was like 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
So it's maybe
Yep.
like 15 years in.
Yep.
But that's when he like went into it more of a full-time position instead of like he's always kind of had church positions, if
Yep.
that makes sense. Yeah.
He had a leadership role in the church, but
Mm-hmm.
became a vocationally pastor of the church, right? Yeah,
Correct.
my
Yeah.
dad passed. He was Air Force 36 years, 26 years. And then for
Mm-hmm.
31 years after the military, when he retired, he pastored, which none of us saw coming. That
Yeah.
was an awesome thing. It was a great call. But yeah, he pastored for 31 years. So we both have a dad that pastor. That's awesome. So
Something in common.
that leads us into your role at, of course, the university, and you shared how some opportunities you had for ministry, and even as a busy college student, you were very involved in our life of our church at Highview Church, and you're
Mm-hmm.
also part of a small group. So it wasn't just attending services or activities on Sundays. You were there even through the week. You intentionally made efforts to be a part of a small group and even help lead that small group even now on
Mm-hmm.
occasion, on Wednesday nights. And then but your call and your role as far as with campus staff in this opportunity with Campus Outreach in Brazil for the next 2 years, starting in January 2026. And I want to make sure that people know how to be able to learn more about that. So I'm just going to briefly just kind of give people an idea of what that will look like. So we're going to include a link so that they can actually reach out to you and learn more about that opportunity and who you are. But there's on the bottom of that homepage there, they can support you financially and all that. But there'll be some links that they can check out, right? So tell us about that, Jordan. What is that ministry going to look like?
So when I get to Brazil, pretty much what it will look like, since our schedules are based on really pursuing the heart of of the students, every day will look different. It will never be a cookie cutter day. It will always be a little bit different. Our goal is to leverage about 40 hours a week on minimum to pursuing college students, sharing the gospel with them at the bare minimum, hoping for an opportunity to direct them towards Christ or give them opportunity to see Christ. And then if they choose to believe in him and put their faith in him, have a huge party for them and then teach them how, because Matthew 28:19 says to make disciples, not simply to make converts. And so
Yes.
we want to teach them how to read the Bible, how to pray for themselves, so that they can grow in that healthy discernment themselves, and then use that discernment to find a healthy local church, which we will be partnered with while we are in Brazil. So we'll probably invite them to the church that we'll be attending with goals that is not just a season of their life that they're a believer, but they become a believer for a lifetime, and become fruitful and multiply more believers down the path. So that's typically
That's
what our
awesome.
days will look like. typically if it's a one-on-one with students, it would just kind of be walking through the Bible or asking them questions, hoping to get to that gospel conversation. When we get like one or two, maybe that's when we begin things like D groups or Bible studies where we get to ask deeper questions for people who are believers. Then we can kind of help them reveal some things that are going on internally, like we ask Lord to reveal our heart or that he shows us ourselves. And so that's really what we'll press into and kind of help them mold them into the leaders that CL's kind of molded me into, that we can help them to motivate others. We want to create leaders that disciple new leaders. And so that's the goal, just going through that process, helping people be more confident with sharing even their own testimony of how the Lord has particularly pursued their heart, and then how they can share it with others to bring them in, to show them the goodness that Christ died on the cross for them. And so just very intentionally trying to funnel in as many college students as we can, give them the opportunity to hear the gospel and for their hearts to be softened, and then for the trajectory of their eternities to be changed one student at a time. And so
Yep.
that's
Yeah,
pretty
that's good
much
stuff.
what we'll be doing on that college campus.
Yeah, that's good stuff. But you were pursuing and did get a degree, bachelor's in studying mathematics. What did you think you were going to be
Yeah,
doing?
go Wolves. Yeah, so I initially went to college to get a degree in mathematics to be a teacher. I wanted to be a
Okay.
professor in college.
Okay.
When I got the degree, the job market was a little bit more difficult than I expected it to. So I actually accepted a job to teach English in China, Shenzhen, China.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy. And I would have left in June of this year, so I would have been there for about 5 months now. But
I know some people that do that
beforehand,
online, and because of the
yeah.
time zones, they have to get up late. They have to be on their virtual at like 5 o'clock in the morning. But some of these students were hilarious. Like their grandparents are in the background, and they're trying to introduce you to grandma, and
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing, culture going on. But tell me how you then began starting to feel this call towards this vocation now of ministry that totally transitioned.
Yeah. So while I was a student at West Georgia, Campus Outreach has a leadership team that they invited me to, that helped me kind of develop some of my leadership skills, and we called it the Impact Team, which our goal was to make an impact on the campus. So it's a cool name. And so they kind of taught us on how to lead Bible studies, how to read scripture with intent to teach and share. And so I started with my own little Bible study, and let's not say my own. I did it with somebody else. I was led in partnership in a Bible study. And so one summer beach project, which is pretty much a 6-week event where you just go to Florida and you focus on growing with your relationship with Christ and evangelism and things like that. I was a room leader. And so I led a Bible study there, and I got kind of really comfortable with leading it. And I was like, this is something that I think I do well, and I enjoy doing it. Plus, I feel like when I'm reading to share, I get more information than when I'm just reading for myself. And so now I try to always read it as if I'm going to share it with somebody.
Oh, that's discipleship.
Yeah, pretty much. And so
We complicate it, don't we? And that's essentially what we're doing. We're passing that
yeah,
on. Right.
it's literally just that simple. And so one summer with Campus Outreach, I had an amazing opportunity to go to Johannesburg, South Africa,
Oh,
with
wow.
something we called a cross-cultural project. And we spent 6 weeks out there just sharing the gospel to South Africans who are college students. Some of them are believers, some of them not. And so we were just able to see what it's like to live life on mission. And I think that's when I was like, this is something that I could do. And not only could do, I enjoy doing it. And so, on our way back, a really good friend of mine, his name is Simon, we're all joking about like, hey, if you sign up to do this for like 2 more years, let me know. I'll do it with you. I was the guy who was like jokingly said it. But right after we
They
both
took you up on it?
graduated, yeah, right after we graduated, he was like,
Careful what you
hey,
say. Yeah.
we need one more guy. We would love to have one more guy. And I was like, I did say that. So send me the link. And literally I did apply for it. And at this time I did have that job in China, but it was it was until June, and this is probably in March when I'm talking about this story. And so as I was going through the application process, the Lord just opened the doors.
Mm.
And somebody looked at me, and I was trying to explain to him, a mentor of mine, whether I should keep this job, which advances my career and helps me do some of the life goals that I had as well. And it's not necessarily sinful. And I also wanted to be able to like bring the gospel with me wherever I go, which also was in China as well. But he looked at me and he was like, Jordan, this is the freest 2 years of your life you'll probably have.
Mm.
And he also said, imagine what 2 years of your obedience could do for somebody's eternity. And I was like, okay, well, I have no choice now but to go through the application. And that's literally, it was a bunch of small yeses that got me to this 2 year long commitment of going to Brazil. Yeah.
That's awesome. Were you surprised when you got to Johannesburg how developed it is?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know, because I remember they had the World Cup soccer there, and they were showing it on TV, and they were interviewing people at like a shopping mall, which is very, very modern city, more modern than, I mean, sometimes like if they would think it's Atlanta. So they're like, that's in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think sometimes as America, we do a poor job of adequately explaining what people's lives are in other countries.
Like we have the
So I
internet,
was,
but they're not looking at other
yeah,
cities to see how developed these other cities around the world. And
exactly.
even some of our largest cities are not large to these other people. So
I completely agree. And so when I got there, I was like, this is not uncomfortable at all. Now, I will say we did have some unfortunate events that did happen while we were there. There was a pretty large earthquake. I think it's like a 6 or 7 on the Richter scale.
Oh, wow.
And it broke the water reservoir that we had out there. And so there was like 4 weeks that we went without water, like running water. So that was really interesting. I mean, we have some crazy stories from that as well.
And
If
yet
anybody's
you
actually
signed up for
interested.
2 years to go to Brazil.
And then
Brazil
I signed up for
anyway.
2 years to go to
That's
Brazil.
God.
Yeah.
Come on.
It has to be. Yeah.
It
So,
has to be, right?
yeah, that's pretty funny.
Well, we're going to make a way for people to be able to contact you. We'll share that right at the end of our time together here, and they'll be able to connect with you in the show notes. We'll have all kinds of ways to contact you there, and also to book some time with you. We like to end our episodes each time with a segment called "That's So God, That's So Good." Any God moments, maybe recent or maybe not so recent, but that you would want to share with listeners that may be inspiring, encouraging, maybe that somebody's struggling with their own faith?
Yeah. I can kind of speak on myself a little bit. This is so God. So raising support is an extra difficult part of doing this mission work. I would say probably the most difficult part for me will probably be raising support. And in the beginning, I had no desire to do it because of how difficult it was, which is probably one of the reasons why I almost didn't join CO, was for raising support. But during the journey of raising support, I think it's the first time when genuinely, and it's unfortunate that I almost have to be forced to be in this position, but the Lord, everything is fully reliant on my relationship with God. It's fully the Lord. Is not, because when I had a job, I can kind of rely that I go to work, so I know I'm getting the salary, so I can cover X, Y, and Z bills. But when I'm raising support right now, when I don't actively have a job, it's like full time. I'm truly fully relying on God to provide in every aspect of my life, whether it's food, whether it's housing. And so it kind of keeps me on my face. But not only that, it's like a new faith that I have in God, where I can sing things like, "You are enough," and really mean it, because there's nothing else I can rely on. And so going from something that I think I hated the most and thinking about going on mission is probably now the sweetest gift that I've gotten out of it, is knowing that he truly is sufficient in himself. And when I am at my lowest, his grace and his sufficiency is made perfect in my weakness. And so I've really been able to experience that. What do you say? Taste and see. I've really seen it for myself during these past 5 months of really just having to be completely and fully reliant on the provision of God. And so
Somebody
I think
just said
that's
that
been a
yesterday
huge
on a
perk.
call. Taste. He says,
Really?
He said, what's the scripture say? Taste and see that the Lord is
Taste.
good. I'm like, and then here
Yeah.
you are bringing it up too. So, yeah, the Lord's saying something here in the last 2 days through that
Mm.
for sure. Yeah, I think with starting Seeking the City, that was one of the considerations. Is is being able to make sure that you're providing for these things. But God is so faithful, and He just will surprise you and
Mhm.
and move people's hearts to give. And we're praying He's going to do that here. And I began looking at just looking to increase my own income and things that were financial goals for this coming year. And it's like, God, give me more and more so I can give it away. Because there's
Mm.
things that I want to be able to support that. It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't make a big deal out of money, but when I go to the grocery store, they need it. You go to buy a car, they want it, those kind of things.
Mhm.
Go on mission trips, it requires it. But you'll find out in your situation right now. I hear you saying you'll find out quick if money is your God,
Mhm.
because if you idolize that, the need for that money, or you're going, no, I'm finding that I can really trust God. That's
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of hit it on the nail. Most of it is really just learning the language and culture. Part of the fees of my support raising is for a really intensive crash course on the language of
okay.
Portuguese. Good thing is that the friend that I'm going with named Simon, he was born in Brazil. And so he
Oh,
knows a little bit of the language and he knows the culture. So I'm kind of going to use him as like my emotional support human for a while to make sure I don't say any bad words on accident. Um, offend
yeah.
people. So, exactly. And so
Phrases.
I'm really grateful to be able to go with him because he can kind of like keep me in the guide rails while I'm still on my learning curve. But yeah, that's really most of it. Their culture is kind of like the antithesis of ours, whereas us in America, we're very individualistic as a nation. Like, I got to make sure I'm okay before I can help someone else. They're very opposite. They're very collective. So they really, the smallest form of family for them is the intermediate family. And so they're like, if this is best for the family, but worse for me, I'll do it for the family. And
Wow.
so that is something that I'll have to adapt a lot with because me in my mind, sometimes I'll be like, I can't help the family if I'm not good first. But they're like, I'm going to help the family. So when I'm not good, the family will help me. And so
Wow.
they just kind of think we are kind of on the polar ends of that. And so getting over that learning curve of like thinking as an American would think and kind of adapting to how Brazilians would think and then compounding that with also the language barrier. So now to learn the language and the culture. It's just, let's just say they're going to have to be very gracious with me for a while. And so that will be the
I think they
biggest
will.
learning curve probably. And I agree. I believe they will as well. So. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, I really
So
appreciate you guys. You
Jordan's a
helped me and a
product
lot of
of
my good friends. See ya.
answered or have a topic you'd like us to discuss